Caleb looks at the dirty bread in his hands as if holding a treasure. His fingers tremble. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. He lifts the bread to his mouth, but stops. Across the street, a dog is bleeding from its hind leg, panting, its body covered in mud and fear. Caleb swallows hard. His stomach screams, but his heart decides. He crosses the street, kneels on the cracked sidewalk, and offers the last piece of bread to the dog. The animal hesitates, then licks his fingers with hunger and gratitude. Caleb smiles for the first time in weeks. A weak smile, but a real one. Across the corner, a woman watches, wide-eyed, hands over her chest. She didn't see a boy feed a dog. She saw someone hungry choose to care, and in that instant, everything changes. If this simple act touched your heart, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and help this message reach where love still needs to be remembered. Caleb ran around the corner of 8th Avenue, his bare feet burning on the hot asphalt. The Los Angeles sky blazed with the same intensity as his dry throat. In the torn backpack slung over one shoulder, he carried almost nothing. An old jacket, 2 loose shoelaces, and a piece of stale bread wrapped in a gas station napkin. The bread had been there for 2 days. He didn't know if it was still safe to eat, but he didn't care. Hunger didn't ask for permission or stand on ceremony. He leaned his thin body against the side wall of a laundromat, his eyes fixed on a puddle of muddy water reflecting the sky like a broken mirror. Caleb opened the napkin carefully, as if unwrapping a gift. The bread was hard as a rock, but it was all he had. As he lifted it to his lips, a low, weak sound made him freeze. A whimper, almost human, but there was something lighter, more fragile. It was pain mixed with fear. Caleb slowly raised his eyes. Between the dumpster and the laundromat wall, something moved. A pair of dull, deep brown eyes stared at him. It was a dog, as skinny as he was. The skin between patches of fur showed open wounds, one leg bent at a strange angle. The dog didn't approach, didn't bark, just watched as if expecting to be ignored once again. Caleb looked at the bread, then at the dog. Hunger gripped his stomach like a cruel, thin rope, but he knew what he had to do. He tore the bread in half, kept the smaller piece, and approached slowly. He knelt on the cracked sidewalk, extended his hand. The dog hesitated, sniffed, then urgently bit into the piece. Caleb smiled. It was the closest he could get to a real smile. "We're 2 lost souls, huh?" he murmured. Across the street, a woman had stopped walking. She had seen the scene by chance. She had stepped out of the NGO van to get coffee when she spotted the boy. Nadine held the bag with 2 muffins and a cheap cappuccino and lost track of time. She recognized that kind of gesture. It wasn't taught. It wasn't charity. It was pure. And for that very reason, rare. Caleb tried to stand up but felt his vision darken slightly. He was weak. It had been over 48 hours since he last ate a full meal. He didn't tell the dog that, of course. Patch, that's what he decided to call him, though the name was still just in his mind. Patch was breathing heavily but seemed less tense now. Nadine crossed the street. She didn't want to scare him. Boys like that feared everything. Adults, questions, good intentions. She stopped 2 meters away and spoke softly. "He needs care." Caleb looked at her, then at the dog. "So do I," he replied with disarming honesty. She offered the muffins. He refused. Said he didn't accept anything without giving something in return. Nadine hesitated, then proposed, "Help me convince him to get into the van. In return, I'll give you this." Caleb looked at Patch, then at the bread, then at her. "Okay, but he goes first." They went to the van together. The dog climbed up with difficulty, and Caleb gently pushed him from behind. Nadine laid an old towel on the seat, making a small nest. "There's a shelter 2 blocks from here. It's not big, but it's safe," she said. Caleb didn't respond. He just watched, measuring whether the place would be like the others, if someone would come for him in the middle of the night, if there would be invisible cages waiting to trap him again. During the ride, Nadine drove in silence. Caleb stroked Patch's tangled fur with dirty but gentle fingers. His hands bore marks, dry cuts, peeling nails. He was a street boy, yes, but there was something more. Not just abandonment, a specific kind of resilience. As if he were at war with the world but had still chosen not to be cruel. The shelter was in the back of an old decommissioned school in Koreatown. A simple building, graffitied walls, but there were plants on the windowsills and a hand-painted banner above the entrance. The Haven Project. Caleb didn't ask what it was. He just got out, Patch in his arms. Inside, the air was fresh. It smelled of eucalyptus and stale coffee. In the lobby, an elderly man was organizing boxes of folded clothes. He wore a faded hat and a Chicago Cubs t-shirt. Upon seeing Caleb, he smiled sideways. "You look like someone who doesn't trust closed doors." Caleb shrugged. "I just don't like it when they lock from the outside." The man's name was Henry, formerly homeless. He had been through 17 shelters before finding a place that didn't want to change who he was. Now he was part of the volunteer team that welcomed homeless teens. Nadine gave him the basics: name, situation, the dog's condition. They didn't know Caleb's exact age but estimated 13 or 14. He claimed to be 15. No one argued. That night, Caleb slept in a bottom bunk, with Patch curled up on the floor beside him. But sleep took a while to come. Every noise made his body tense up. He was used to sleeping with one eye open and the other on anything that could become a weapon. There, everything seemed too calm. The kind of calm that comes before chaos. Or maybe just the calm he had never known. The next morning, Henry took him to the courtyard. Old bicycles were piled in a corner. "Want to work on something?" Caleb frowned. "With real tools?" Henry laughed. "Fake tools don't fix flat tires." While Patch was examined by a volunteer vet, Caleb dismantled a blue bike with the care of a watchmaker. His hands, though dirty, knew where to touch. Henry watched from a distance. Nadine, too. Neither said anything, but they noticed the same thing. He wasn't there by chance. In the afternoon, Caleb asked to paint one of the bikes. Henry agreed, but made it clear. "If it sells, half goes to the project." Caleb nodded. "The other half goes to the dog." That night, when he returned to the room, he found a note on the bunk. Simple paper folded in half, in firm handwriting. "Not every gesture needs to be big to change everything. H." Caleb folded the note, put it in his jeans pocket, and lay down. But this time, he fell asleep before fear arrived. The next day, something happened. Something that would change everything. Not because it was grand, but because for the first time, someone from the outside started paying attention. The news came as a whisper among the volunteers. A local reporter was looking for real stories of social impact for a new YouTube series, and someone had told him about the boy who shared his bread with an injured dog. No one knew exactly who spread the word, but the story was catching like fire on dry straw. And suddenly, Caleb and Patch became the subject, though Caleb had no idea. Meanwhile, in the concrete yard of the Haven Project, Caleb was tuning the brakes of a pink bicycle with faded children's stickers. He still didn't know the name of the girl who would receive that bike, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that the wheels spun, the handlebars were firm, and the chain didn't slip. Henry watched from a distance, arms crossed and a faint smile hidden behind his stubble. "You fix things like you're listening," he said, approaching slowly. Caleb didn't even look up. "You gotta listen. Bikes talk when something's off." Henry nodded, sat on the ground beside him. Patch lay down between them, tired but with more life in his eyes. The antibiotics were starting to take effect and the wounds were healing. The leg was still compromised, but Caleb refused to talk about amputation. He just needs time, like me. On the third day, a white van stopped in front of the shelter. A short man with thinning hair and a producer's cap got out, accompanied by a young woman with a microphone clipped to the pocket of her denim shirt. They introduced themselves as Dale and Jenna from Red Harbor Media. They had come from Santa Monica. They wanted to film a quick interview, nothing big. "A human story for the internet," they said. Nadine hesitated. Henry was against it. Caleb didn't even know what it was about. But when Jenna showed him a video of an autistic boy who had been adopted after his story was told, Caleb went silent for a long moment. Then he asked, "If you film, will people watching see the dog too?" "They'll see and hear," Jenna replied. "Okay, but only if I get to choose the shirt." In the video, Caleb appears from behind, tightening the tires of a bicycle. Patch lies behind him, ears alert, muzzle healing. The camera pans slowly as Jenna narrates about compassion, choice, and survival. The video lasts 3.5 minutes. 4 hours after being posted, it had over 100,000 views. In 8 hours, it reached 500,000. In the comments, there was everything. Cried and don't even know why. Where can I donate? Does this boy already have a family? How's the dog? I want to help. A couple from Arizona offered to cover Patch's full surgery. A bike shop in Oakland sent new parts. An influencer from San Diego reposted the video with the caption, "He has less than anyone, but gave all he had." Caleb was the last to find out what was happening. Nadine entered the room with teary eyes. She held her phone, speechless, just showed him the screen. Caleb looked, read a few comments, paused on one in particular. "He reminded me of my brother who ran away at 12. I hope he's alive somewhere." Caleb slowly put the phone away, said nothing. But that night, he wrote on a torn piece of paper from the bottom of his backpack, "Maybe I'm still alive." He folded the note and placed it in the same pocket where he kept Henry's message. The video's impact rippled through the shelter. More donations arrived in a week than in entire months. New volunteers showed up. But for Caleb, everything still felt too strange. He still slept with one foot outside the blanket, as if he needed to run at any moment. On a rainy late afternoon, Nadine sat beside him in the cafeteria. Both were eating pasta with tomato sauce that smelled like public school cafeteria food. She spoke gently. "There's a family that wants to talk to you." Caleb stopped chewing, didn't look up. "Family like who?" "A couple from Portland. They saw the video. They connected with your story. They want to meet you. That's all for now." He took another bite of pasta, swallowed hard, then said, "And Patch? They know about him. They're not against it, but it'd be a different city, a different climate, a new routine. You don't have to decide anything now." Caleb dropped the fork, ran his hand through his hair and closed his eyes tightly. Every time someone says, "You don't have to decide now," it's because it's already been decided for me. Nadine didn't answer, just stayed there, silent, letting him feel. That night, Caleb snuck out, took Patch in an improvised bag with blankets. They walked 7 blocks to a decommissioned bus stop. Caleb leaned against the wall, holding the dog in his arms. They stayed there until the sky began to lighten. Patch trembled. So did Caleb. At dawn, they returned to the shelter. Nadine was at the gate. She didn't say a word, just opened her arms. Caleb didn't run, but he didn't resist either. He let her hug him, even without hugging back. Patch barked once. It sounded like a warning, or maybe permission. 2 days later, Caleb asked to paint the yard wall, said he wanted to leave something behind in case he had to go. Henry brought blue paint. Caleb wrote in big, crooked letters, "We only learn to trust when someone doesn't leave." The Red Harbor team came back. They wanted a follow-up video. Caleb agreed, but with one condition. "I don't want people thinking I'm just some poor kid who saved a dog. I didn't save anyone. He found me first." In the new video, Caleb is seen playing with Patch, assembling a bike, helping a small child climb onto one. The footage is intercut with interviews from Nadine, Henry, and other teens at the shelter. The video ends with Caleb saying, "I think when you take care of someone, you find a little bit of yourself, even if you don't know what you're looking for." This second video surpassed 2 million views in 24 hours. But that same night, Henry received an unexpected phone call. It was someone from the past. A short call, full of urgency. And when he hung up, he stayed silent for a long time. The next morning, Caleb woke up and found something strange in the yard. A brown envelope, with his name written in adult handwriting. Inside, there was a single phrase printed in black on white. And that would change everything. The envelope trembled between Caleb's fingers, as if it carried a kind of silent threat. It wasn't fear. It was deeper than that. An instinctive distrust of anything too neatly packaged, with letters too straight, with too much intention. The name on the envelope was written with a precision he didn't recognize. No one there wrote like that. He opened it slowly. Inside was a single printed sheet. At the top, a crest he didn't recognize. And just below, a line in firm letters. "You have legal rights to a complete history of assistance and direct relative location. Contact Gabrielle M. Jensen, Social Services of Fresno, California." Caleb read the sentence 3 times, then let the paper fall onto the workbench. The sound was sharp, like a key dropping to the floor. Henry watched from a distance, his gaze mixing regret and warning. He hadn't placed the envelope there, but he knew who had sent it, and he knew the weight it carried. Caleb left without a word, walked down the hall, crossed the cafeteria, descended the side ramp, and found Patch lying beside a newly planted bed of hydrangeas. He sat down next to him, and buried his face in his hands. The dog let out a long sigh, almost human, and rested his muzzle on the boy's arm. It was the first time in a long while that Caleb thought about the word family without it being followed by a lump in his throat. He hadn't spoken of his mother since he ran away, never said whether his father was alive, and when asked about siblings, he always changed the subject. But now that sheet, that woman with a name that sounded like a soap opera lawyer, said that maybe, just maybe, someone had been looking for him. That night, Caleb waited for everyone to fall asleep. Then he returned to the workshop, took the sheet, folded it carefully and hid it inside the separated sole of his sneaker. He slept very little. His mind was racing. The morning came gray and the city felt stifled, as if it were breathing poorly. Henry called him to talk in the late afternoon. They brought 2 sodas and sat near the blue wall Caleb had painted. The old man looked at the phrase written there, then at the boy beside him. "I know that social worker, Gabrielle. She doesn't send letters for nothing." Caleb didn't respond. He opened the soda can and listened to the fizz escape like a secret. "She helps with reunions. People who were taken from their parents, people who ran away or were left behind." "I ran away," Caleb said at last. Henry nodded gently. He waited. "I was 9. My mom, she drank. A lot. But she always said she'd get better. One day she didn't. She hit me with an iron spoon. I left and never went back." Henry pressed the can between his fingers. "Never again?" "Never. Until now." Silence fell between them. The kind of silence that only exists between people who've hurt the same way. 3 days passed. Caleb tried to stay distracted by restoring a red bike for a boy who hated riding. "If you put an Iron Man sticker on it, maybe I'll try," the kid had said. Caleb laughed. He painted the entire helmet gold, but the envelope sheet still burned, even hidden. It was Nadine who suggested, "I can call. Just ask for the name. No promises. Only if you want." He hesitated, said yes, then said no. In the end, he just handed over the sheet without a word. Nadine understood. She called from the office with the speakerphone off. When she returned, her eyes carried something he couldn't read. "There's someone who's been looking for you for 6 years. But it's not your mother." Caleb felt his whole body freeze. An old memory, buried under tons of pain, seemed to push open the lid of a poorly sealed coffin. There was someone, a name he hadn't spoken in a long time. "Who?" "Your brother, Nathaniel." Caleb blinked slowly, then looked at the wall. "He's dead." "No, he was adopted. He lives in Sacramento now. He's doing well and he wants to see you." The words hit with a kind of strangeness he didn't expect, as if they belonged to someone else. Caleb stood up, went to his room, stayed there for hours. Patch lay beside him, silent. The next day, Caleb asked to write a letter. It was short. 2 sentences. "I'm not that boy anymore, but I'm still your brother." Henry sent the letter by email. Gabrielle replied that Nathaniel read it in silence and asked to travel to Los Angeles. He wanted to meet him in person. This time, Caleb didn't run. The following Saturday, the Haven was unusually quiet. Everyone knew. No one said a word. A white van pulled up at the gate. A tall young man stepped out wearing a Dodgers cap and carrying a canvas backpack. Caleb recognized him instantly, despite the 6 years. Nathaniel stopped a few feet away, smiled. Caleb couldn't move. Until Patch barked. Just once, Eden ran toward the stranger, as if he knew. The hug came after. It took time, but it came, and it lasted longer than Caleb thought he could handle. When they pulled apart, Nathaniel looked at him with tearful eyes. "I thought you were dead." "So did I." They spent the day together, spoke little, but said a lot. Nathaniel talked about the adoption, the new home, the kind parents, but always with a void with a name. Caleb talked about the years on the street, the alleys, the dangers, but also about Patch and about Henry, and about the red bike with the Iron Man sticker. At the end of the day, Nathaniel made a proposal. He wanted Caleb to spend some time in Sacramento. Nothing permanent, just a visit. Caleb looked at Henry, then Nadine, then Patch. "Only if he comes too." Nathaniel smiled. "Of course. I already set up a bed for him too." That night, Caleb slept with his backpack packed, Patch by his side, his heart racing, unsure if it was happiness or fear. In the middle of the night, he went to the blue wall, touched the painted letters, and whispered, "Someone stayed, and now someone came back." But that same night, while everyone slept, someone accessed the Haven Project system. Someone who wasn't supposed to know where Caleb was. The next morning, the phone rang, and the voice on the other end wasn't Nathaniel's. Henry answered the phone on reflex, his eyes still swollen from a sleepless night. It was too early for donation calls, too late for a medical emergency. The voice on the other end didn't say good morning, didn't introduce itself. It simply said, "I know he's there. I want my son back." Henry froze. He recognized the tone, not the voice itself, but the kind of voice, cold, dry, laced with the authority of someone drunk on their own power. It wasn't a request. It was a demand. He tried to stall. "Sorry, who is this?" "Caleb's mother. And if you don't hand him over, I'm calling the police." He didn't respond. He just hung up, then stood there for minutes, phone still pressed to his ear, as if the words could be pulled back. Then he went to the director's office, shut the door, and called Nadine. Told her what had happened. She turned pale, but she doesn't have custody anymore. The case was closed as abandonment. Someone talked too much, or the video got too loud. Isn't there a way to stop this, Henry? She's got her full name, her history, and apparently, a lawyer. That same afternoon, a notification arrived by email. A formal request for the location of a minor, submitted by a law firm in Fresno. The request was still under review, but the name was there. Rosalind Garrett, the woman Caleb had left behind at 9 years old. The woman now demanding her son back. They chose not to tell Caleb immediately. Nadine knew something like that could shatter what had only just begun to bloom. But Henry disagreed. "We're not like the other places. Here, he chooses to know." Caleb listened to everything in silence. They were sitting in the rec room, between worn pillows and the smell of acrylic paint. Patch lay asleep in his lap, as always. When Henry finished speaking, Caleb didn't shout. He didn't cry. He didn't run. He simply murmured, "Why does she want me now? What changed? Maybe the video. Maybe because you're doing well. She never liked me. Maybe she wants to prove she did, or just prove she still has control. And if the court sides with her?" Nadine leaned in, steady. "You have the right to say no, and you're not alone." Caleb took a deep breath. His chest felt tight, like there wasn't enough air. But he was tired of running, tired of being afraid of everything. He decided to fight. With the help of Gabrielle, the social worker, they filed a formal petition for protection until guardianship could be resolved. In the meantime, Nathaniel renewed his offer. "You can come to Sacramento now. I've got a family lawyer. We'll protect you there." But the shelter was his home. It was the first place he ever felt like he belonged. Leaving now, with a threat hanging over him, felt like fleeing. And he had promised himself he wouldn't run anymore. 2 days later, a black car parked across the street. It sat there for hours. Engine off, tinted windows. Henry called the police, but there was no violation. Public road. Still, the message was clear. The next day, Jenna, the journalist from the video, returned to the shelter. She had received an anonymous tip accusing the shelter of using the boy to raise funds unethically. False accusations. But the damage was done. Donors began pulling back. The media started investigating. And Rosalind, the mother, was now saying she just wanted to protect her son from exploitation. The pressure mounted. The case became a talking point in activist groups and on social media. Suddenly, Caleb was no longer an invisible boy. He was public property. But all he wanted was to keep fixing bikes and stay with Patch. The breaking point came on a gray Friday. Someone broke into the shelter during the night. They didn't steal anything. They just spray painted the blue wall in black paint. Over the phrase Caleb had painted, they wrote, "You are a lie." He saw it the next morning, stood in front of the wall for several minutes, then grabbed a bucket, a brush, and began scrubbing. Henry tried to help, but Caleb refused. "I made the mess, I clean it." Nadine snapped a photo without him noticing. She sent it to Nathaniel, who replied with a single sentence, "Let me bring him here, before something worse happens." It was Saturday when they made the decision. He would travel. 1 week, just to rest, think. Gabrielle arranged the transport, temporary housing in Sacramento, contact with legal counsel. Everything would be monitored. The night before the trip, Caleb went to the yard. placed the red bike against the wall. Over the still-stained paint, he wrote again, "You can't erase someone who's not afraid to come back." The next morning, he packed his backpack. Patch wore an improvised collar, a coin tied to a string. It was a symbol between them. We have worth, even when no one sees it. Henry took him to the station. Nadine stayed behind, crying quietly. When the train arrived, Caleb looked back. No one there was his blood family, but maybe they were the first to really love him. The trip would take just over 3 hours. Caleb and Patch slept for half of it. The other half he spent staring out the window, imagining Nathaniel's older face, the smell of the new house, the promised bed for the dog. When they arrived, Nathaniel was there, holding a handmade sign. "The brother life tried to steal from me." Caleb laughed and ran to him. They spent the week together, walked around the neighborhood, made waffles with whipped cream, played video games. Caleb was still scared, but he was beginning to believe fear didn't have to be in charge of everything. On Thursday, Henry called. There was good news and bad. The good: Rosalind's guardianship request had been denied in preliminary court. The bad: she had filed a new appeal, and this time she was demanding a DNA test. "Does that change anything?" Caleb asked quietly. "It might buy her time, but not rights." On Friday, Gabrielle called to inform him. The final hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks from now. Caleb would have to appear. He would have to decide. That night, Nathaniel shared something he had carried for a long time. "I saw you leave. I woke up when the door slammed. I pretended I was asleep. I was scared of her too, but I've always hated myself for not going after you." Caleb said nothing, then handed him the coin on the string. "Keep it. One day, if you ever hate yourself again, remember that you're worth it." Nathaniel cried. Patch lay down between them, and they slept on the couch, like children life almost lost. But while Caleb dreamed in the depths of a building in Fresno, Rosalind signed a new document, an urgent request for temporary custody on the grounds of emotional endangerment, and the judge decided to approve it. When Caleb entered the Los Angeles County Courthouse, he wore the same worn-out sneakers with the loose sole and the black t-shirt Henry had given him weeks earlier. Beside Nathaniel and the social worker Gabrielle, he carried in his pocket the string with Patch's copper coin, the silent symbol of everything he had overcome. The courtroom was cold, gray, lit by harsh fluorescent lights. The air carried the scent of old coffee and overly handled paper. The silence there felt like its own language, one only spoken by those who've waited too long to be heard. On the other side of the room, Rosalind waited with her lawyer. She wore a tight navy dress, her hair pulled into a severe bun, makeup carefully applied. A black woman with a rigid presence, holding her purse with both hands like something inside it might unravel if she relaxed. She didn't look at Caleb when he walked in, but Caleb saw her, and he saw something in her eyes that wasn't pain or remorse. It was control, familiar, recognizable, frightening. The judge, a white man with narrow eyes and a bored tone, read the case documents without urgency. He spoke of the years of absence, the abandonment at age 9, the old reports and the new attempts at rehabilitation. He did so with the bureaucratic coldness of someone who has heard too many stories and forgotten most of them. Then he gave the floor to Rosalind's defense. "My client is a black woman who grew up without family or community support," said the attorney, looking directly at the judge. "She was a victim of domestic violence. She had issues with alcohol, yes, but she sought treatment, started over, works, pays rent, and wants to reclaim what she lost. She wants to be a mother again." Rosalind finally raised her eyes to Caleb. They were slightly teary, but behind that tear wasn't an apology. It was entitlement, as if to say, "I have the right." The judge nodded and turned to Caleb. "Would you like to speak?" Caleb stood. His hands, black, steady, were gently clenched at his sides. His voice came out clear. "I am her son, yes. But being a mother isn't just about bringing me into the world. It's about staying when I needed you. It's not locking your door from the inside because you're scared of your own home. She didn't forget me. She erased me. And now that I showed up in a video with millions of views, she remembers? Now I'm a useful story?" He paused. Nathaniel beside him tilted his head slowly in quiet support. Caleb turned back to the judge. "I'm a black boy who learned to live without expecting the world to be fair. And everything good that's happened to me came because I cared and was cared for. Not because someone rescued me, I don't want to live in fear again. Going back to her would be that. Gabrielle handed the judge a folder of documents. Proof of Caleb's stay at the Haven, letters of support from educators, photos of him fixing bikes, caring for Patch, helping other black kids from the neighborhood who saw in him more than just another face on the street. The judge called for a 15-minute recess. Outside in the courthouse courtyard, Henry waited with Patch in his lap. Caleb stared through the hallway window, eyes fixed on the dog. The Los Angeles sky was clear, the kind of blue that only comes after a storm. When they returned to the courtroom, the judge wiped his glasses and delivered his decision in a sober tone. Upon review of the facts, testimonies, and the behavioral history of the petitioner, this court finds that the minor's continued placement with his biological brother, Nathaniel Garrett, offers greater emotional stability, safety, and continuity of care. Full custody is granted to Nathaniel Garrett. Case closed. Rosalind did not react. No tears, no words. She simply closed her purse, stood up, and left. Her heels echoed sharply on the vinyl floor. Caleb watched her go but didn't stand. There was nothing more to chase. She was part of him, but not of his future. Outside, Patch ran to Caleb the moment he saw him. He jumped on his chest and barked twice. Henry smiled with misty eyes. Nadine stood nearby, holding a folded letter in her hands. "This was left on your bed this morning," she said, handing it over. Caleb opened it. It was from the child who would receive the red bike. An 8-year-old black boy with shaky handwriting. "Thank you for making something just for me. I've never had anything that was only mine before. One day I want to be you." Caleb smiled. He tucked the letter next to the coin. On the way back to Sacramento, Nathaniel drove. In the back seat, Patch slept with his head in Caleb's lap. The road stretched endlessly, but for the first time that wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't an escape. It was moving forward. In the new home, Caleb helped cook, walked around the neighborhood, fixed bikes in the garage. He never told his full story at school. He didn't need to. He was just Caleb, a black boy who now had a place where he could leave his shoes by the door and sleep without bracing his shoulders. A month later, he got a call from Jenna. The original video had passed 10 million views. A publisher wanted to turn his story into a book. Another company talked about a movie adaptation. "I don't know if I want that," he said. "Why not?" "Because I'm not a hero." Maybe that's exactly why. The following week, he traveled to Washington. He had been nominated for a Youth Impact Award. At the ceremony, he walked on stage wearing a borrowed navy blazer and his worn white sneakers. On his lapel, he had Patch's coin pinned with a safety pin. The audience was completely silent. "I'm Caleb Garrett, a black boy who spent a long time believing he was invisible. But one day, a dog saw me. And then, someone believed. And then, I started to believe too. I'm not a miracle, but I'm proof that miracles happen when someone stays." When he finished, the applause came like a wave. But Caleb stepped off the stage with the same calm of someone assembling a bike for another child. No rush, no pride. He didn't take the medal home. He left it on Henry's gravestone beneath a Cubs cap, with a folded note. "You saw me when no one else did. Now others see me because of you." Patch aged gracefully, cloudy eyes but a spirit still alive. And when he passed, Caleb buried him beneath an oak tree with a simple wooden sign. "The one who taught me not to fear giving the little you have." The blue wall at the old shelter was restored. Caleb's phrase is still there. But now, just below it, in small letters, another was painted by one of the boys who came after. "He was just like us, and he made it." If this story made you feel, even for a second, that there's still beauty in simple choices, leave a like and subscribe. Who knows? Maybe with one click you'll help another Caleb be seen. Now, stay tuned for another powerful story.